I'm Ariana Grande.
Hi, I'm Cynthia Erivo.
And you're listening to the Broadway Podcast Network.
Visit bpn.fm to discover more.
There's a cat over here. There's a cat over there. And the wrong one died. And the wrong one died.
Welcome to The Wrong Cat Died, the podcast breakdown of the catastrophe. I'm your host, Mike Abrams, and today we have an amazing guest. He starred as Skimbleshanks in the 2016 Broadway revival of Cats. Welcome, Colin Cunliffe, and thank you for joining me.
Thank you for having me, Mike.
I am very excited to talk to you. I have done a little bit of research and had a little bit of conversations about Skimbleshanks, but I think there's a lot more to dig here. But before we get into the character and the plot and everything else, I love to always hear your background with the musical, because I know you were in a touring production prior to the Broadway revival, but had you seen it before? Like, did you see it as a kid? Like, when was your introduction?
I have a long history with this show. I'm one of those kids. I listened to the Broadway recording, the cast recording, for years. I'd actually seen my brother perform like the Rum Tum Tugger number in like a high school musical. It was like an Andrew Lloyd Webber review. And it wasn't the first time my brother, he was older, so I was just a little bit in awe. And I was like, that's so cool. To which then got me into the cast recording, and years later ended up going and seeing the London production. I had written in my, for a school report, when I turn 18, I'm going to move to New York and be in Cats on Broadway. So it was like,
You're super fan.
Oh, super fan. But I actually hadn't even seen the show yet when I'd written that, so I didn't even really know the show.
You saw the high school production. Well, tell me about this high school production. That's almost more fascinating than the Broadway production.
Well, it was a selection of Andrew Lloyd Webber numbers. So there were a few different ones, and there was the Rum Tum Tugger was a number, and I think it was just...
I love that for high school they pick that particular one. Like of all the options to choose from right? Cats, we're going to pick Tugger.
Yeah,
to go thrust on stage in high school.
Exactly. So saw the London production with a friend, loved it. Was very torn on whether I was a Rum Tum Tugger or a Skimbleshanks or a Monka-strap. So they were pulling me in all different directions of my personality. And then there was an audition right when I graduated theater school in New York for the first non-equity tour of the show. So
that's where you started, right? So you went on tour as a swing, and who did you cover?
I covered, they called it the Big Boys Swing track. And it was one of those, those moments I didn't really know what a swing was. It was my first big professional job. And they're like, so you got it. And I'm like, oh my God, great. They're like, so you're going to be covering all these cats? And I was like, well, but which one do I get to play? And they're like, no, you get to play all of them if somebody's sick or injured. I was like, oh, okay, I think this is good. And it was probably best I didn't know what I was getting myself into, because I ended up covering 7 tracks in the show. Let's see, there was Monka-strap, Skimbleshanks, Rum Tum Tugger, Mungo Jerry, Tumble Brutus, I did not tumble, and Plato McCavity. So Plato McCavity is, for one part of the show, he's Plato, and then the next part, okay. Mike, you've gotten so much knowledge now on this show. I love it. And it's funny, for the audition, I'd gone and I was like, I'm a Tugger, man. I'm going to go. So I went in with black velvet belled jazz pants and a ripped army tank top. And was like, what's up? And went for it. And they were probably like, this poor kid, let's give him a call back, just to be nice. And the musical director, Kristen Blodgett, she was like, this kid's a Skimble. And so they gave me all this Skimble material, and I kept being like, no, I'm a Tugger. No, and it started, I think, then my long history of feeling actually the connection with quite a few of these cats.
That is. And so this is your first job, like right out of, okay. And you didn't even realize that you basically had 7 jobs now. Correct. You had to figure out 7 lines and 7 tracks and everything to go with it.
Correct. Yeah. We're learning the show, and we learned the Jellicle Ball first, and it was the full companies learning this. And then they were like, okay, they started staging the number, and they were like, okay, all the swings step out. And that's when they started like just running the show with the playing company. And I was like, okay, I'm starting to see what this is going to be. But, I think years later, my body is very grateful for that.
Yeah.
It's wild because then 20 years later, auditioned for this Broadway revival, didn't get it. And then got a call out of the blue a year later and asked me if I would come in the following Tuesday to start rehearsals.
And so who did you audition for when you came back for the revival? Was it for Skimbleshanks?
Same deal. They were like, we want to see you for Skimbleshanks. And I'm like, listen, I'd really like to do Tugger. Can I do the Tugger material? And they were like, sure. Okay. Yeah. And I went in and I did the Tugger material once. And they're like, great, let's work on the Skimble stuff again. I was like, can't they just see me as a Tugger? But it's actually this beautiful, Kristen Blodgett, who was, like I said, the musical director for this non-equity tour 20 years ago, later is doing this Broadway revival. And I just think she knows this show more than anyone. She's been involved for a very, very long time. She is a goddess when it comes to music and musical direction and conducting, and I just adore that woman with all my heart. But when she is set on what cat you are, I don't think she can budge.
No changing. You are typecasted now in her mind, and you're in. So you came in halfway through or partway through.
Yeah.
What I find it fascinating of like there's the cat school and learning through it, but then when you come in, you kind of are continuing, you get a little bit less of that. So what were you told? I mean, you definitely as a fan knew more about this, but what are you told on like, hey, here's how you really need to play Skimbleshanks?
They I went and got my score because I had a hunch that I could bring this up, but they basically gave you, I think these were 3 words describing your cat.
Magic 3 words that your cast definitely dealt with.
Yes. So Skimbles, I was told, what was it? Self-regarding, caring, and bright.
Interesting.
I know. And we have a lot to talk about, Mike, because I listened to your Skimble episode.
What did you think?
Well, let's start with Skim is not a good nickname.
Not the nickname. Not the nickname.
Skimble.
Okay.
I get Skimbleshanks is long, but we go with Skimble, not Skim.
Skim. Okay.
That's
So
like
what's one thing I think is super fascinating about this, and this is a little behind the scenes for anybody who's listened from the beginning. I recorded those in order, and I basically learned the stuff as it went. So if you listen to the first kind of couple, I clearly had no idea what was happening like later on in the show. And then as I've learned more over time, I listened back to them like, oh, and I was reading back being like, I definitely like felt some weird things or thought some weird things, or like now that I know more, I'm like, oh, that makes more sense. Like I should probably redo all of these. But that's so what I want to hear what else you have. Cause like Skim. Okay. So Skimble.
Yeah, he is. I'm down for the uncle. He is definitely like the uncle, like of the try. He's like a little gay uncle. I like to think of him as. Definitely not the creepy uncle though. He is not the Home Alone guy in the shower. Yeah. I was so sad when I heard you say that. They love Skimble, I like to think and hope.
I do think I was a little scarred, and I told the story about his production by being like blinded by that number. And I think there's some like subconscious animosity there that came out when I was writing, where I'm just like, I get it. I love it. It was cool. Like the whole, I was like, cause I was fascinated by that whole building the train. I was like, I love the set design aspect of this. I was like, oh, this is cool. This is going to be a wheel and this is going to be that. And then I couldn't see like the whole for like 5 minutes after, and I was mad, and I was sitting there just mad. And so I think I project a lot of that in the episode, that anger onto Skimble.
Fair enough.
And I do, and there is some. We'll get to the cat's family tree, but there is rumors that he is an uncle for a lot of the cats, and so I think that's where it came from.
Yes,
but I maybe I was a little too harsh.
It's all right. That's why we're chatting now.
That's why we're here to set the record straight. Yes. So I would have thought there would have been a word, something with orderly or something more like it was very prompt and. Like that character keeps everything in line, almost like Jenny a little bit, but in a different way. And so I do find those 3 words, they make sense, but I was definitely thinking there'd be a different route there.
That's the cool thing about Skimble, and that's why I love him so much, is that he's very orderly and he gets the things done and all that, but he is a little mischievous. Like the lie on the opening is at 11:42 with the signal overdue and the passengers all frantic to a man. That's when he would appear, and it's saunter to. So he knows that they're late, but he's been busy in the luggage van doing what? But he's waiting for them to freak out before he then comes out as like, it's fine, we can go, I'm here. But, so he's playing around with them.
Okay.
He's a little more,
I like that.
I think he's a little more mischievous. And I think that's where then he clicks in with the kittens, because the kittens and Skimble are together a lot. And they like him with that. And I think it's because he is still playful. He likes to get shit done, and it needs to get done, but work hard, play hard.
That's fair. I can see that. And I think like it is a upbeat, fun number. And so it kind of has some of that aspect to it.
And same deal with Jenny. I don't remember in the revival if this is how he starts. I think so. But he's sleeping. So he's sleeping. And same with Jenny, which I like that little connection. So because they've been out all night doing their thing and having a blast. And so they're on just kind of a different time clock as well.
What do you think their relation is? Because there's two rumors, and then there's also I don't know if it's in the 1998 movie or where. I mean, like for your production, my knowledge is 2 shows and trying to just remember what I saw. Right. Versus I've seen the 1998 production in bits and pieces more than I wish to admit at this point, because it's what's on YouTube. And there's a part where they're holding hands, Jenny and Skimble. And so I think that there's a lot of thought that they're either related or together.
I think that they are like really, really tight, like best buds that totally get it on together. She's definitely had his kittens and he's raised hers. It's like, it's very incestuous.
The whole thing is.
Exactly. But, Jenny and Skimble, they team up in the sensual clump in the middle of the ball. They roll down stage together. So, they definitely have their fun together.
Okay. So he comes out, he's fun. He's definitely has that uncle feel. There's a part in the 1998 movie that I don't know if you did in the revival, because it's, I probably wouldn't have saw it anyways, because it's like very quick. But Skimble definitely drops his pants in front of like 10 other cats. And I think it's also part of why probably I went the creepy uncle route when I was writing this, is that to me was an interesting decision, not from like a musical aspect, but from like, if I'm thinking about the story and these characters, to have, our train conductor and coming in, doing his dance number, and then all of a sudden just like dropping trow.
He's telling the story of what happens when he goes into like the train cars. So he's actually, he's playing the character of the train guest. It's not him taking off his pants.
Okay.
He's miming taking off pants, like he's just gotten to the berth. They're getting ready for bed. He's going to splash some water on his face. So he's saying that like it was very pleasant. Yeah, you missed that one.
I did not follow that at all when I watched it. So that makes sense. Okay, so that makes more sense. What about the handing Old Deuteronomy something?
Yeah, I keep trying to wrap my brain around. I don't remember this. Is this at the end of the train? Do you know?
It's either, I'm trying to think, because I basically just watched the YouTube clip over and over and over again until I got tired of it. And when I was writing these, and I just remember him handing something, and I first was like, this looks like a bribe, because like Old Deuteronomy gets very excited and like shows whatever he handed around. I'm sure he's actually handing him nothing in the musical, but like it was intended to be some type of. At first I thought it was just like the ticket, like he pays, here's your ticket. But the way Old Deuteronomy got excited for it made me think that, and again, the angle I'm taking is that this is a bribe. Like, this is your chance.
Absolutely not, Mike. Absolutely, Skimble would
never do that.
Never. He does not need to.
No, okay.
That's not the way it works. No, I'm trying to think, because he sees him at the beginning of the number, and old dude's kind of like, all right, let's pick this up. And Skimble's like, yeah, got it. And then he sees him at the train, and he kind of is like, good job, Skimble. But the only other thing I'm thinking is maybe on the video, does Skimble throw him the mouse? like
that might be it.
the imaginary mouse that again he's acting out for like all the kittens and all the cats. I think that might be what you're.
But he looks really excited when he gets it.
It's a mouse, and old dude's a cat.
And the cat, I guess that's true.
Yeah.
So he throws him out. So what's the story there? Like, why is he throwing him the mouse?
Well, that's video because we didn't do that. That was actually a really fun thing. Each night, I'd throw the mouse to a different cat. So
you're definitely not bribing.
No. It's like, and who like that night was really making Skimble happy, and he's like, okay, you get the mouse. You know,
that's a cool
marking on stage, and they're being lazy. They don't get the mouse.
I do love hearing all the different things your production did to kind of have some improv in a show that's not improv. I mean, like with the picture, and there's just some crazy stories that come from it, because I think a lot of people have like very strong visual memories of something that happened in there that could be very different than someone else who saw it. And I think that's like a really cool take that your production did.
Well, I think it's built into the show where it's, we don't leave the stage. You don't have to get revved back up. It's, you're looking around and you're playing on one of the coolest sets that's ever been designed. The lighting is spectacular. Everyone's in makeup and costume, so you don't have to ever leave the world. And that right there then just provides a lot of opportunity for, relationships. And as you've learned from all this, that's very strong in this show, is how everybody's connected. So, it was really cool even coming in halfway through the run and taking kind of what I had done as Skimble before 20 years prior. And it still kind of it still kind of worked. And some of those relationships were oddly very similar with the same cats and ones that you wouldn't even, they're not even featured. Those moments aren't featured. They're in the dark by a pipe in the back, but they're the strong kind of relationship building moments that I think really make that show.
So let's talk about one of those with Tyler Haynes. There was, and I think I've gotten a little bit more to the bottom of it, because it was in the rumor mill, and Tyler answered some, and then I've heard that some of this came from the Junkyard, which is the fan group that has come to see the show, that are the super fans that have been to a lot, and I think that essentially they basically saw that there was some friendship and some relationship that isn't normally there between Tugger and Skimble, and I think that they just went with it. And I'm curious, because I believe Tyler said that you continued with it when you came on. How much went into that? Like, is that just something where it's just like, oh, we're going to do this? Or when you thought about it 20 years ago, did you also have some relationship with Tugger, which might have also just been because you really wanted to be Tugger?
That definitely permeated my Skimble. Like, I think he doesn't want to like Tugger, but he does. And I think Tugger likes him. I think that Tugger breaks him a little bit. There's times where if, the kittens aren't around or this and that, maybe Skimble bends a little bit, and, they've partied a few times together for sure. I think they've had some fun, but Skimble can't really reveal that to all the cats.
So did you ever take the mouse and say, like, I see someone from the Junkyard here down there, and I'm going to throw it to Tugger today just to mess with him?
No, I maybe
should have.
I know, but
you should have. That's why
I might have thrown him the mouse, because he's up on like this weird perch, like he's not really involved with the immediate focus. So of course that's Tugger gold, because you can just do whatever you want up there, and we definitely we would clock in with each other sometimes, and I mean it would have been rare that I would have thrown it to Tugger, though, just because this is Skimble's moment, and this is not the time where Skimble wants Tugger taking his light.
The more I've learned that there's some like deep passion of like, where, I mean, to your point, where you're mad that I called Skimble the uncle, like the uncle, and like I love that people have strong opinions about the show, and I mean I have one strong opinion about the show, which we'll get to at the end. But the rest are just me kind of like trying to fill in the blanks, because I'm more of a like sitcom fan where I like a neat, tidy story, and I did not get that. And so knowing like I wish she would have just been like, yep, I saw that person. I know that they think that these two are supposed to dislike each other. So I'm going to throw it to them and let them know that there's a little bit there.
That almost goes against the whole show, where like what I love about this show is that the whole thing starts off with like, what the hell are you doing here, humans? You know, this is not a show for humans. So it's very understandable, all the reactions to it. You know, this is a show where the humans have come into the junkyard, and we decide after this opening number, through the opening number, that, okay, we'll let you watch, but we're not going to give you anything. This isn't about you. We don't care about you. So, humans.
Okay. So you start by trying to scare us out with green eyes.
See, that was a no. I remember getting a no, and I think this was back when I first did the show, that green eyes is not meant to scare people. It's the easiest temptation to want to make that be the thing, like a boo moment. I was told it's not about scaring people, and Sarah.
That's good. That's good to know, and it makes sense because then it's just like, hey, they're roaming around, and it's there.
Well, you're making it about the humans again. Where it's like it's easy to do that, and I think you need to steer away from that, because then that just gives it more of this. They're in our territory.
It scared the living daylights out of me.
Wait, were you on an aisle?
I was not on an aisle, and I was so glad I was not on an aisle. And I purposely told the second time I came back a year later, I told my friend, I said, we're not sitting on an aisle. But of course we sat, I think, at the last row, like a back row of something. And so then they're behind me jumping over,
I'll find you.
No, I like to watch the shows. I don't like to be in the shows.
I get it. I hate it's Sarah said it too, but it's like, as an audience member, I hate audience participation. As an actor, I love it. You just mess with people. I mean, you got to break that wall. It's a blast.
I get it. I didn't go into this show thinking that was going to be that case. Yes. And so for it to start that way, you know, and again, I saw a matinee the first time. I was not prepared for anything I was going to happen. I really wasn't mentally there. And for it to start that way was not the way I expected. Yeah, I mean, again, like a great indication, but also why I'm just like, children should not see this show.
Yeah, that's very interesting to me. That's an interesting statement that I've heard you make a few times.
People are starting to convince me more of it as I've talked to other cast members and fans. There's just a lot, and maybe it's because I've read the story too much. Like I've read way too deep into it, but there's just a lot there where I'm like, all right, so that's definitely a prostitute. That's definitely going to a brothel. This is an orgy. But it just clearly goes over the heads of kids.
But there's it's respectful. It's sensual. It's a sensual clump. It's not the like insertion clump. You know, you don't talk about the violence that happens with McCavity. It's, you know, I think this is a bigger discussion in the, is it okay to bring up sensual, sexual things if there are.
But then it's like, McCavity and Demeter are in an abusive relationship.
Yes.
There's a kidnap.
Yes.
Of a sibling.
Yeah, that to me, that's more like there's like attacks on each other. That's more aggressive and I think harsh than a sensual clump or a hip thrust.
It's just it's all together. You know, it's just like there's everything. Like you can keep going.
Yes. Okay. Good point.
With every single thing here. And again, I think a lot of it goes over a kid's head, and it's just like, oh, it's cats. It's cool. It's like, it's unbelievable talent, and the makeup and the costumes and the set. It's all just like fascinating to watch. But I could write you 20 different things that are not PG-13 topics in the show that come up, that could keep coming up. So that's kind of been my stance. But at the same time, I'll probably at some point bring my niece or nephew or somebody to it well before they're supposed to see it.
I mean, it's the fascinating thing with putting the show together is to watch people come into the show and have to just get comfy, rubbing up on each other. And it's just, you just can't avoid it. Like you just got to go there. And that's why if it's a good company, it's great, which I've been fortunate enough to work with good companies when I've done the show. But Yeah, you're up on each other.
Yeah. So let's jump into that in the family tree. So what do you think is your relationship with Tugger? Is it friends? Is it brothers? Is there any relation?
I think there's like a distant family connection, but I also think that there is some sexual activity that has happened over the years between the two of them. But I don't think that Skimble would necessarily call him his friend. I think he would, it's more of a, can I say the F word on the show? Yeah. They're kind of like random weird fuck buddies that after partying a little too hard at the end of the night, they're like, oh, well, okay, just don't tell anybody.
Yeah, it's the opposites attract.
Yeah, totally.
Okay, I can see that. And then so we've already discussed Jenny, and I think you're Rumpelteaser's uncle. That seems to be the consensus.
That or like Rump was a product of me and Jenny.
I mean, there's a million ways. I've tried to draw it out. I've had somebody send me their drawings of it, and it's just a lot of dotted lines. That's what I've decided. Is that there's no straight lines. Like there's a couple very clear, we know, but then everything else is just like, look, they're in an orgy. It's probably, it could be any of the options.
And that's what I think a lot of the time. I think they lose track.
But this was the one that I think threw me off the most. Is it Corpocat? I don't know how to pronounce this one. Again, this is how little I know about the non-main characters, which is a problem for this show.
Which we'll also discuss in a second.
But it says it's your adopted son.
Yeah, where did you find that? Who says that?
There's a fan page, a fan Wikipedia page that has it's essentially Wikipedia for everything, and it's in there. There's different rumor mills for everybody, and it's in there. It's just a line. There's no context. That's where I got a lot of these things where I was like, all right, let me try to fill in the blanks here. But I just can't get over the fact that adopted. It's like this is already a weird family tree. Now we're going to throw in some random adoption. Like, is he abandoned?
That's just random. Well, that's what's weird because Corcopat and Tantamile, which are sometimes unfortunately left out of productions. If it's like a scaled down production, they'll sometimes cut the twins, but they're the twins, and they're very very psychic. They have a lot of like very psychic power. So if you look, they're a lot of the times like the first ones that seal Deuteronomy, or they're like the connection to get Syllabub to sing, at the top of the second act. So they're very kind of mystical. So I would have.
They're also twins, and only one is adopted.
That's exactly. And
we're gonna split them up here.
I don't know. I don't know if
that's very cruel of you.
Exactly. And Skimble wouldn't do that. He'd be the dad to both of them.
Yeah. Okay.
So I might have to watch that one. I think that
we can throw that one out.
Yeah.
It was, again, there was not a lot in most of these rumors, and then for me, I'm watching either the movie or clips of songs, and trying to fill in the blanks myself. Yeah. And to the point I think is like, there's a lot of the cats I probably couldn't point out if you lined them up, because I just don't like. I'm not the super fan of the show. I'm not the one that like came in. I ended up here with a joke that has gone now 30 episodes, and I've loved it, and it's been fascinating to learn. But there's still a lot. Like I was looking up Growl Tiger the other day because I'm thinking about trying to maybe dig into that and why was that whole number kind of canceled. And I was just like, I can't find much on it at all. And I don't know, like, so I'm trying to fill in the blanks in the productions with very limited information because I've not seen that number because it's not in your show.
It's a little racially insensitive.
Yeah. Which
is
why, but it's like, it's one of those things that and then you go into European productions and productions in Asia where they're just flat out different characters added. And there's not productions for me to go watch. So I'm just kind of figuring this out on the fly. And I know there's a lot of stuff I got wrong. And honestly, I kind of like my version of it. So I'm sticking to it.
I think you're pretty spot on with a lot of stuff, though.
Okay.
I've been really impressed on kind of where and how you connect.
That's I think the writer and the storyteller in me piecing together something that I, again, have very little with, but was like, all right, here's what I did have gripes when I left with the ending. And so I was like, I'm going to rewrite parts of this. But so let's come back to the piece you want. What did you want me to know about the all the other cats I don't know anything about.
Well, it was specifically Corico Pat, just because,
Okay.
because you had referenced before that he's just not, I don't think he said he wasn't important, but he's very important.
I think
he's very the twins are like the conduit energy to like keep the psychic stuff going with all of us.
The non-important to me are just, I think there's no number centered around them.
Correct.
Which is probably, again, now that I think back, hearing you say that, that's like such a bad way to think about it, because there's so much other like incredible dancing and these other things. Like, it's not diminishing the character, but from a storytelling standpoint, like I hadn't thought about that psychic piece coming through. So for me, they're just like, they're not progressing the story, and especially my story, because they're not up. They're not competing.
Right.
So they're just background dancers. They're, I always joke, they're like the people coming on set, changing the stage for people, or like if you're doing America's Got Talent or The Voice, they've got some other singers joining them in, but they're not really competing. They're not the one that you're going to vote on.
But it's also like one of the hardest, the twins track. It's one of the hardest tracks in the show. It's, a friend of, that's
so, and that's where every time I talk to people in the show, or people who are just in general in the industry, you would watch that show and notice those things. I'm gonna watch that show and say, that's really cool, those were great dancers. But since that cat wasn't brought to the forefront of like I remembered Mungo J and Rumple Teaser because you just sang the names over and over again, and it's like those other cats don't resonate in that fashion if you're just watching it from that angle. Yeah. And so as a fan, that's where I'm just like, I don't even know who they are.
Right. Correct.
But the Junkyard does. So like there's groups of people who do know, and there are other people who are in the industry who are going to be like, yes, I understand that track, or that's like, there are pieces I'll never know. Someone, I think it was Georgina, she like told me a dance count. I'm like, cool. Like, I have no idea what you're talking about. Like, I appreciate that you recognize this, and other people listening to this will. It was right over my head. I have no idea what you're talking about. But the only other part of your song I wanted to ask you about is the sneeze.
Yeah. She's playing along. She's playing along with the storytelling.
Okay, so this all goes back to like, you're telling the story. That's why you take your pants off. That's what you do. Like, and it's the playful aspect it's the playful aspect with the being on time. It's kind of giving both sides of the personality. Exactly.
And I think he is. He's a storyteller. I think that, again, that's why the kittens really like him. He does this a lot with them. And that's why, when I was like, oh God, is Skimble the creepy uncle? And I've just thought that I'm the sweet caring uncle the whole time. And so I really looked into myself and but no, because they're enjoying.
Okay. Yeah. I can see that. I definitely can see that.
I think deep down inside, the performers are dreading that number and they hate that number. And I didn't realize that because it's up and it's fun, but it's kind of only up and fun for Skimble. The rest of them, they have to carry. I mean, those train pieces, some of them are so awkward, so heavy. You're holding them weird. You have to spin it with one foot through the spokes. So I think
you're loving it.
They hate the number, but Skimble loves it as the performers, not as the cats. I think the cats.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah. That definitely makes sense. Who pointed the light at me? That's what I really want to know, because I know it's not you.
No, who's the track that does the light? Yeah, I think that was a bad design. I don't support that, Mike. I actually feel really bad about that.
Because I want to know, because I felt like they just angled it. Like, it was like, I see this guy.
It's really
I'm gonna hit him. But it was a lot, and it didn't happen the second time.
Okay, good.
But it was an experience.
Good.
And it was coming right off of, again, at that point, I'm starting to kind of grasp my own take of like, here's what's happening. And then I am ready. I'm like, oh, this is awesome. Look at this train. And then it's just like, boom.
You couldn't even see it.
And you have to tell me, I don't remember what was next, because I think I was like taken aback by it. Like, I don't know what happens there. It's towards the end, but
the train falls apart and it's like, oh no. But then on to the next.
Next performer.
It's going to be okay. Oh, Skimble and his train. See, again, even then, there's these little cracks of where, it's a little odd that Skimble's train fell apart. That doesn't go with Skimble. So I think there's some
Yeah, there's some holes in my episode very clearly. And I'm aware that there are probably a lot more. I usually ask the super fans, my favorite thing is, what did I get wrong? Like, where did I really miss? And so I love hearing these things of where, because it's the beauty of the show is that there's not a direct path that anyone's like, I walked out and I thought that. There are some consensuses and some stuff that like it seems right, but there's a lot where you can just be like, no, I'm sorry, this is how I interpreted it. And there's only probably 3 people. There's Andy Blankenviewer, Andrew Lloyd Webber, a couple other people that maybe like was like, this is how I intended it, and no one else in the world can answer this question. And so I like the fact that I can kind of say, no, I got a creepy uncle vibe, but now that you're explaining it to me, I'm like, oh no, that's wholesome. That's not creepy uncle vibe.
Right. Well, I mean, it's the genius of I think Gillian Lynn as well, the choreographer, the original choreographer is, and unfortunately, I never got the chance to work with her specifically, but you get these things obviously passed down to you, and at least the original choreography, every move has a dramatic intention behind it, which I like that. I didn't grow up as a ballet dancer and all that. I kind of played catch up as a dancer growing up, but I do click with narrative dancing or dramatic kind of storytelling with the moves and stuff. And I mean, things like titties to the wind, and that's like you face right. But hearing, and because Gillian Lynn was also very sensual and, had a bit of a mouth on her from what I understand. But that where it looks like, oh, turn to the right, if you think titties to the wind, it gives it a whole new air about it. So that whole piece, having all of that stuff to it, I love that.
There is, again, it all goes back to, these are things that as a performer and someone who's trained in this, you're going to recognize,
right,
and appreciate. And as someone who's not, it's not that I don't appreciate it or perform. It's just, it just doesn't resonate. I don't even capture that. I just am seeing these other pieces.
Well, I don't think it needs to be known to an audience standpoint. I mean, it's like, they don't need to know that that's titties to the wind. It's amongst many other movements, so, I think we can have our secrets as performers, and I don't think you always need to know what we're thinking and what we're doing and why, or maybe at least why we're doing things. But again, you mix that in within this show that then is all poetry and with all this choreography, it's like, of course people are going to go out there and be like, what the hell was that? Which I love. I love that people get so, you're a perfect example where you're like, I don't even know. And like, I don't even know if you like it or if you don't like it, but yet you're doing this podcast on it and you're going in. So I don't know if you're a fan of the show or not. And that's, it's almost not even important, or because it's this fascination that brought you to then do this podcast on a show that you may or may not even like. Like, what an odd show to bring that and stir that up in people.
It is the most. Usually when I walk out of, and this is a me thing, I'm very aware of this. I don't usually walk out and say I didn't like something or I hated it. There's things where I'm just like, this wasn't really my cup of tea, but I don't usually be like, I want my 2 hours back. And so it's very rare. Like, I've never walked out of a movie. I very rarely will turn something off. Like, I'll usually just watch it completion. I'll just be like, I'm fairly easily entertained. This is one of the few shows where everyone seems to have an opinion on it. And it's kind of wild that there's huge hate towards it or huge love towards it. And I don't fall in either of those. I fall in a fascination of the story and one very specific angle of it, which I think is also, again, cool that I can have this passion to this one thing. And there's 40 years of history for us to explore it. Why there's enough there for us to have these conversations. Yeah. But there are people who are adamant that it's Team Gus. There are people who are adamant that it's perfect as is. There should be no wrong. That people are get upset if you and Tugger really do have the relationship, or if there's some those cats aren't supposed to be friends. And it's like, well, they're friends off stage, so they're definitely gonna have some friendship on stage, even though those cats maybe shouldn't be. And that to me is just like a fascinating piece. I don't really, and I wouldn't do this, but I would always love to know, like, if you and I went to see a different show, just any random show, I probably would walk out and just be like, oh, that was fun. Mm-hmm. And you probably would be like, oh, I love that certain number or that song. Like, you would appreciate pieces to it more than I would. I would mostly just be like, that looked really difficult to do if it was a number, or like, that was impressive. Or I can't hit that note. That's like, or I can't hit any note, but like most people can't hit that note. But there's been plenty of shows where I'll hear people who are very knowledgeable and they'll be like, oh, that was a disaster. I'm like, I mean, my lottery ticket was fine. Like, I enjoyed myself.
And I think that's the beauty of audiences, is that it's not one or the other. I had a director one time tell us, he's like, you'll be doing a show and someone in the front row will be having the time of their life and their lives changed by your performance. And the person sitting right next to them will want to kill themselves at the same time because they hate the show so much. I'm paraphrasing. It was actually much more eloquent, but that same idea where it's like, and both audience members to me are important,
It's wild. And I think it's different when it's live too. And I've said this a lot because I'm much more, I'm much more of a sports fan. And so like, I will recognize as a hockey player, as, someone who grew up playing most sports and played a lot of hockey, that there are things I'm like, oh, that player's doing that. It's completely not important to what you would think as a non-fan. But I know that if that player doesn't do that, something else doesn't happen. And this whole thing that falls apart, that's what I don't have in the theater world. I don't see those things.
Do you look for those moments, like you're searching those out, or you're watching it from kind of like a beginning to finish, and then those things may come up and get your attention? Or are you looking at it from a like, I want to see this play, I want to see this player, I want to see this?
I usually go in like a movie, in the sense of like, I'm going there to be entertained with the story. Okay. Now
sports games in sports games.
Oh, and so, I mean, I started playing hockey when I was 3 years old. I've still played to this day. And no, I watched that, but there are things that, like, as a player, and I think if you've played at a high level in any of these things, there are things where you appreciate and you understand and you watch and you just see it because you've coached. I've coached and done a lot with it, but there's a few things where it'll happen in a game and it's happens so fast that an average person who doesn't watch or doesn't play wouldn't pick up on that. Right. But it's so important to either the way that they're playing the game or the way that this particular movement's happening. And there's some beauty into it. And so I recognize that is the same thing that I'm witnessing in the theater world, but I don't know enough about it because I haven't had like coaching or someone being like, no, you've got to be over there, or you've got to be doing this, or you have to do this particular motion for that to make sense. Because I'm just watching it as a person, just being like, what's the story? Tell me the story. Like, I might pick up a thing or two. I've started to pick up more on sets. Like, I've really like seeing, oh, that's kind of cool how that's coming in and that's going out and that's coming up. But there's a lot of times, like with the other cats, where, to your point, with the twins, I never would have noticed that piece that seems like they're the first ones to recognize, or the first ones to notice, the first ones to turn. And that's thought through. Like, that's definitely thought about. But as an audience member, it's just like, I was so confused at this show the first time I saw it that I didn't pick up any of it. But even now, if I like watched the movie again, I don't think I would have pieced that together.
I think there are even performers that wouldn't even piece that together. Cats is unique like that. I think where it is hard to get those specifics, and it's definitely something that's been passed down. But then I would be shocked sometimes with these super fans that they would know some of these relationships, and I'm like, how did you know that? There's nothing in the script that says that. This connection happens in the back, so it's fascinating. But, also to your point about how one maybe watches a show, I think it can sometimes be a detriment as an actor, or dancer or whatever, when I think we can sometimes fall victim to dissecting it too much. I've definitely had moments where I'm like, yo, boys, stop trying to look at this so technically, step back, have a little bit of innocence, realize, where you are, what's happening. You're stepping into a theater, you're going to escape. Chill out, and I think a lot of performers do that. They end up being miserable, and they almost lose the love of theater because they're watching it so technically. and they're looking for something that is wrong, or that it's like, oh, they sing it like this, versus like give it a chance.
It is a little bit of, it is a part your job, like, and so you do take it from a different angle.
Correct.
Because you're watching that of, this is, the ins and outs of the industry,
right,
that most of us don't.
Right.
So, okay. Before we go to my rapid fire, and of course my final question, what is there anything else that you think I missed? Because I think I'm very excited to hear some of the things you've changed my mind on in a good way.
Oh, what was you had an issue with the writing. There's something that you didn't like in the Skimble number that they changed. Oh, because Angelo Weber changed a lyric from the
yeah. So it was a weird choice. It was like every other one when they changed the poems to the songs had like very deliberate, like I had to cut out a couple lines. Like it was very clear, or I maybe changed. This was just like a couple words changed, but had no real change in the lyric or the storytelling or anything else. And it wasn't like, the only thing is maybe when I thought about it more, because I reread through everything and kind of listened back to the episode, that it was have to do with like how they actual scored the number differently. But it seemed like it wasn't so significant that I was like, you couldn't fit those words into the score. Like you couldn't make that work. Like it was just like, there was no need to do that. And they still did it.
I appreciate that observation. Yeah, I love that you picked that up. Oh, I did want, there was something else. Peter, I'm so fascinated by your fascination with Peter.
It's strange to me.
I'm going to help you out with something. So in the naming of cats, which you've heard, it's one of the hardest things to memorize. There are 3 different names.
3 names, yeah.
Right. Okay, yep. So has someone talked to you about this?
Yes, but so someone tried to explain it to me in the sense of, so I'll let you keep going, because I think I want to hear your version of it. There's the 3 names.
Right. There's like the common name, and that can be like, Peter, and maybe there's been a few different cats named Peter. And then there's the name that no other cat has. So that's like a Mistopheles or a Munkustrap. And then there's the name that you just don't even, it's like, we can't even understand it as humans,
So someone has tried to explain this to me. Where are the other Peters? Like, where are the other common names?
Like those characters?
Yeah. Like everybody else, the part I pulled out is that I understand now that there's, and I didn't when I first got obsessed with this, but I understand now that there are the 3 names and that this is the common one.
Right.
But there are not other common names. And for some reason, Peter still gets to go on stage and dance in the opening number.
So does Bill Bailey.
So Bill Bailey's plays, I guess, one other one. But if
it's rare, it's weird. I'm not going to lie. It just
is weird, and it's not in any other productions really. Peter's not. He doesn't have, again, that Wikipedia page. I finally did a Peter episode just to make it up myself. Yes. And the Wikipedia page has like 4,000 pages worth of stuff, and they don't have a Peter page. There is not one. But there are some pictures, and I know it's part of the Gus Bus track, and I've got my made up stories for where they are, but I mean, it's very clear that they just needed another body for the opening number, and that name is in the poem, and there it is. But I just think it's like there's not enough common names for me, and it was like, why was this one picked and really stuck with?
Yeah, I get it.
But I wrote my own story for Peter.
I'm gonna have to listen to that one.
There's no way I'm right. I'm very, very aware of this. I don't think anybody's ever thought to that level of Peter, but I gave him a backstory. I gave him my opinion on it.
But maybe that's what Peter needs. And in future production, someone is gonna have listened to that, and Peter's gonna get a feature.
I want to know more, this is in my Peter episode, but there's I forget where in Asia, there's a Gilbert, and Gilbert has a page, but Peter doesn't. Oh. And it's only in like 1 or 2 productions.
Yeah, I feel like I've heard of that.
And I want to know more about Gilbert. but I don't have the capacity to try to figure out. It took me a long time to figure out Peter.
Yeah, I think stick with Peter. That's a lot.
So let's go into rapid fire.
Yes.
You've played a lot of the cats, but I usually want to say, like, who would you want to play? So if you were, I'm going to take Tugger out of it because I think we've established very clearly that that's what you want to play in your next Jellicle life. But what would be like? What's another cat? Like, what's another track you didn't get the chance to do, or only did as a swing a couple times that you like would want to do?
It's funny because Tumble Brutus, I was thrown on in like an emergency situation. I didn't really tumble. It was horrible. I did a somersault, like the final bow. And I was like, this is what I got. So the cast loved that one. But I really liked playing him, oddly enough. He's a shit, like, and he's got really great makeup. His colors were my colors, so that was nice. So Tumble Brutus, I guess if I could tumble, it would be okay. I like this question because I like what a lot of people have answered what they like can't do. It's like either they're not physically that character or something, or don't have that skill. So I love that answer. I think that's fun. And again, another cat I know very little about. Yeah, I think Bomb Ballerina would be really fun too.
It's become my favorite song.
It's a good song.
In the whole thing. Who's your favorite and least favorite cat? Not character, cat.
Oddly enough, so I hate Tumble Brutus as a cat. He's just a little shit. And my favorite, I like Electra. She's
Electra.
Weird. Yeah, I don't know if she'd be my favorite, but I like her, and I like Gus.
Gus is great.
Yeah.
Favorite song?
The Old Deuteronomy, when Old Deuteronomy enters.
Old Deuteronomy. Okay. I like that.
I just think it's some of the most beautiful music. I have Kristen Blodgett's cutoffs ingrained in my head, and Monk and Tugger sing these beautiful, beautiful lines. So, and I think that's the other thing that people don't realize is that Cats is a hard fucking show to sing. It is intense. That score is intense, and you are singing the whole time. You're screaming your face off. There's booth singers. Everyone is singing on stage, and they're screaming their faces off.
Yeah, the booth singers thing was fascinating to me. Like that, it's so difficult. And that was when I left the first time, I walked out and I said that was an impressive feat. Like story, whatever, everything else that kind of went through my mind. Yeah, and that was just an impressive thing to watch.
I don't know if you'll find this interesting or entertaining, but after I left the show as Skimble, they brought me back to cover Rum Tum Tugger, Monkastrap, and Skimble, and then I would sing in the booth. Oh wait,
yeah, yep.
Did I cut out?
No.
Okay. So I came back to cover Monkastrap, Skimble, and Tugger, and then sing in the booth. And there was a show where I was going into work, and I had a kitten that we had adopted at home, right kind of at the beginning of when I joined the company. Really great cat, Tito, and I get a call from my partner that he had choked on a chicken bone, and they were rushing him to the hospital. So as the beginning notes of the show start, I see that they're taking my cat into the hospital and they need me to come because they don't know if he's going to make it. So I had to, through a glass pane, mimic my cat is choking on a chicken bone. I have to leave and I have to get the swing down here to sing, and Kristen Blodgett conducting. She's like, go, and I had to run out and Tito didn't make it. And cat died as I was doing Cats. It was traumatic. It was horrible. And I probably shouldn't say this, but I wanted to spread his ashes on the tire, but I didn't get him cremated in time before we closed. I didn't get his ashes back in time. So I have this desire to still find a company of cats that I can spread my dead cat. It's all over.
I was expecting this like, oh, and and he survived and this happened. This one dark.
It was
darker than the show.
Oh my God. The next day at work was the most horrible thing, singing that end song about sending your cat or about your cats ascending to heaven or cat heaven. It was
the day after you rushed out. That's got to be rough. That's got to be really rough.
That's what I'm telling you. This show runs very deep.
That's a layer that I did not expect. I'm telling you, that's a whole nother layer. I did not realize that there's possibly cast members sprinting out to take care of their own actual cat.
Well, I
try to. I mean, that's a crazy story.
I'd like to say, if he was sick or whatever, I wouldn't have left. But he was dying and croaking, and they needed to pull the plug on him.
Wow.
But that was a moment where I was like, oh my God, oh shit. Like, people are coming here who are maybe like, they're mourning over their dead animals, their dead cats and stuff like that. And with this whole thing with like ascension up, I'm like, this maybe that's a nice moment for these people, to kind of a little cathartic cat fight.
I hope that somebody then got the pun. It was perfect. I hope that somebody went to see the show to mourn their cat and walked out feeling better than they walked in. I don't want to say that it seems like a low probability.
There's a lot of people with cats.
But it's run for 40 years. It's had to have happened at some point.
Yes.
So I will say, if somebody is listening and they went to see the show and it solved it was the last stage of your grief.
Yes.
I would love to talk to you and hear your story.
Yes.
All right, I'm going to ask my final question, which is, you've clearly heard my arguments against Grisabella. I think I've heard some compelling arguments for her, and I'm not ready to change the name of my podcast and change the whole show, but I definitely think that there's more merit there than I give credit. So do you want to argue for her, or do you think it should be somebody else?
I mean, it's, this has been really hard for me, Mike. I've been going through who I think should have gotten picked if it wasn't for Grisabella, and immediately jumped on the Gus train, and then heard hers, who I just have to say, Christopher Gurr was so amazing in the show. He was such a pleasure to watch every night, where that number can, if it's the person's not great, can be hell. You're on stage for a long time. So the side note, but then I heard his whole thing with like him and old dude, and I was like, oh, that's fascinating. Okay, I get that.
It almost bothered me because it was such a compelling argument against it, and everyone else argues for him. And I was just like, when I heard it, I was like, why'd you got to ruin it? Like, that was at least my other argument, and he just ruined it. Well,
that's why I hate working with Christopher Gurr, because he's too good of an actor. Ruins all that stuff by justifying things. But so it's been really, I've been running through my brain. Okay, who is it? Okay, who would it be? Okay. I think more so than Grisabella is Victoria, the white cat. She's the one that initiates the gesture of forgiveness, or whatever you want to call it. But she goes and she's the first cat that touches Grisabella. Now, granted, old dude, I think, does maybe a little bit of a cue, but it's like, we've witnessed Victoria throughout this show go through these changes and all this stuff, which, I was told once that there's a Victoria, the dance solo in the beginning, is all about her becoming a woman, and her going through, which I just think is beautiful and lovely. So I think, I don't know if I'm 100% with that, but because Christopher Gurr ruined all of that, I might say Victoria is a little bit more deserving than Grisabella. I get Grisabella's trials and tribulations, but really she came back and did what? Just came back? I don't think she lived a rough life.
And the point is that, at least this Mamie's argument or not Mamie, I don't think she made this argument, but everyone makes the argument for her, is that her belting out memory is deserving of winning. But I've not heard a Victoria argument, so I kind of like it.
She screams, touch me. She screams it. Touch me. Victoria's the one that touches her. She's
the winner.
Yeah, Grisabella's just like, somebody touch me, like really loud. Why does that then grant someone the prize of the Heaviside layer.
I like it. I've not heard of Victoria argument, so I'm just happy to have somebody else agree it's not Grisabella.
I don't think it's Grisabella. I don't know if I'm 100% in agreement that it's Victoria, but I think that might be the one that's hedging a little bit ahead.
I think what I've really learned is there needs to be a Cats 2.
Yes,
but
the return to
the return to around like the second act. Now that Grisabella's done and out,
then
who's up next? That's what I want to see.
Yep.
I'm not qualified to write it or perform it or act it. It's season 2. If I was writing it, would be the way it'd be, not the sequel. So before we wrap up, I want to know, what are you?
No, I don't want to wrap. I want to talk about Cats forever. No one will do this with me, Mike.
I know. I do find it fascinating that a lot of your cast is just like, yes, I would love to, because no one wants to ever talk about this ever again.
No, this is not normal. We're not able to have these conversations with.
I'm glad I'm filling a void that I don't think a lot of people realize needed to be filled.
Yes.
But I want to hear what are you working on these days?
So Broadway shut down. We got out of there because our landlords wouldn't give us a break on our rent, and we can't really we're not getting any help elsewhere. So we gave up our keys to the apartment and we moved to this great place about 2 hours outside of the city, paying so much less than I do in the city. But while it shut down, came up here, and a good friend lives nearby, and we started a production company called The Fet.
Amazing.
Yeah, we in August we produced a very safe, distant, and masked dance festival at the Forestburg Playhouse, which was awesome. We sold that out, which was really cool and just really special to be able to get back on stage and bring up some local choreographers from the city and get to collaborate. And then in October, we produced a haunted hotel, which was super cool.
Wow.
With like live performance and a lot of dance kind of elements within that, in the storytelling. So we kind of are watering that. So
how can people find out more about it? Or about other things you're producing?
Just go, I guess. I'm so bad with that. The Fet. Just keep an eye out for. It's on. We have an Instagram account.
The Fet. Okay.
By January 1st, 2021, we'll have a website. So go to thefet.com in 2021.
Thefet.com. This should release in next year. So go to thefet.com.
But not yet.
And learn more. And how can we find you on social media? I guess maybe this is a dangerous question now.
Oh, I'm this asshole. So it's Colin, COLIN _ Hollis, HOLLIS _ Shannon, SHANNON, Colin Hollis Shannon.
Okay. And is that Instagram? Is that all of them?
Instagram. I'm only on Instagram.
Only on Instagram.
Yeah,
okay.
I just joined a few years ago. I'm new.
Sounds like you're active.
Sad.
Well, we'll send people to thefet.com in 2021.
Yeah. Or you can visit me on that Instagram too.
On Instagram.
Colin Hollis Shannon.
Amazing. Well, thank you for being an amazing guest. Thank you for changing my mind on Skimble, not Skim. I definitely, there's some things, there's no way we're going in and editing the episode. So it's going to live out there that way. But now people can listen to this one and know it's not the creepy uncle vibe. It's the fun uncle, not Skimble. Plenty of other things that are there. And I love the Victoria argument just because I don't think I've had enough people try to make it. And so I just love anytime it's not Grisabella, it's like, it's a good episode for me.
I'm with you on that.
Well, thank you for listening to this episode with Colin Cunliffe on The Wrong Cat Died, the podcast breakdown of the catastrophe. To follow along, you can subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, or anywhere else you listen to podcasts. Follow us on Twitter and Instagram at The Wrong Cat Died, or check out our website, thewrongcatdied.com.